Hi everyone, and welcome back to our IELTS Talk Lab podcast, where we bring real IELTS topics to life through natural yet structured conversations. Today we talk about food and nutrition. Close your eyes for a moment, unless you're walking, and imagine the simplest meal you enjoy on a busy day. Maybe a bowl of rice with vegetables and an egg, or a slice of bread with hummus and a handful of tomatoes. It looks ordinary, almost forgettable, and yet hidden in that small plate is a choreography of molecules and signals. A quiet conversation between your gut, your brain, your hormones, and even the trillions of microbes that rent space in your intestine. Today's episode is about that conversation, food and nutrition, told as one continuous journey you can listen to from start to finish, like a long train ride where the landscape keeps changing, but the track stays smooth. Settle in, breathe. Let's begin. Food is rarely just fuel. It's information. When you eat, you're not only adding calories to a tank, you're sending messages that influence appetite, mood, immune function, memory, even how your genes are expressed in the short term. A crisp apple and a glass of apple juice carry the same sugar, technically, but they don't say the same thing to your body. The apple, intact fiber, intact structure, makes you chew, slows gastric emptying, blunts the rise in blood glucose, and nudges gut microbes to make short-chain fatty acids your colon cells adore. Juice, pleasant, convenient, slides past the checkpoints. Your blood sugar climbs faster. Insulin follows. And you may be hungry again sooner than you expect. The lesson isn't moral. It's mechanical. The form of food, the matrix, the texture, the pace of eating, matters as much as the numbers on a label. Think of the macronutrients as the major voices in the choir. Carbohydrates are the quick conversationalists, speaking in the language of glucose. They power cells, especially the brain, which is metabolically extravagant. But there is a spectrum. Intact grains and beans behave differently from refined starches and syrups. Protein is the craftsman, supplying amino acids to build enzymes, hormones, transporters, antibodies, and, yes, muscle. A useful trick. Distribute protein across the day, rather than banking it all at night. Your muscles like regular deliveries, and fat, so often misunderstood, is the diplomat, weaving into cell membranes, carrying fat-soluble vitamins, and shaping satiety. Olive oil, nuts, seeds, oily fish. These are not indulgences so much as structural engineers for your metabolism. Trans fats, on the other hand, are agents provocateurs. They disrupt the conversation. As for saturated fat, the verdict depends heavily on the company it keeps. A diet rich in vegetables, pulses, and olive oil can buffer a moderate amount. A diet of ultra-processed snacks amplifies the risk profile. Micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals, are the quiet specialists. You notice their work most clearly when something goes wrong. Iron dips and your energy sags. B12 is scarce and nerves fray. Vitamin D is low and bones whisper complaints you can't quite place. Bioavailability, the fraction your body can actually absorb, depends on the food matrix and on cooking. Spinach has iron, yes, but compounds in spinach also block iron's uptake. Squeeze in vitamin C and the gate opens wider. Little hinges swing big doors in nutrition. Now, a delicate truth. For weight and body composition, energy balance still matters. Calories in, calories out. But that phrase is dangerously easy to weaponize. Your body is not a simple ledger. It's a dynamic system with safeguards. Lose weight quickly, and your resting energy expenditure adapts downward. Keep irregular sleep and your appetite hormones misbehave. Live in a food environment designed to make hyperpalatable foods effortless, and you'll need more willpower than any of us possess on a bad day. The more humane approach is to shape the environment so it asks less of you. Visible fruit, portioned nuts, chopped vegetables at eye level in the fridge, water or tea within reach. A plan for lunch that exists before hunger does. Let's pause. Not long. Just a breath. And imagine breakfast tomorrow. You don't need a perfect plate. You need a predictable anchor. Oats with yogurt, berries, and seeds. Or eggs with sautéed greens and whole grain toast. Or tofu scramble with tomatoes and herbs. Each option carries fiber, protein, color, and a friendly fat. Each option is not a diet, but a ritual. Much of nutrition is ritual. A structure that keeps you steady when life doesn't. Patterns matter more than single foods. The Mediterranean pattern, Vegetables, legumes, whole grains, nuts, olive oil, fish, modest dairy, minimal processed meats keeps winning not because it's fashionable, but because it's stable. It's hard to argue with a plate that is mostly plants, plus enough protein to repair you and enough fat to keep you satisfied. The DASH pattern, developed for blood pressure, is similar. Generous potassium, magnesium, calcium, less salt, more produce, adequate protein. Low-carb approaches can help with glycemic control. The best versions look suspiciously Mediterranean too. Olive oil and leafy greens, not just bacon and butter. Intermittent fasting can be a tool, but it's a clock, not a compass. What you eat still determines where you end up. In all cases, the principle is steady. More fiber, more color, more intact structure, and enough protein across the day. Let's complicate the scene, as real life does, by leaving the kitchen and stepping into culture. Food is identity, memory, and belonging. It carries geography and history and sauces and spices. It is unrealistic, even unkind, to tell a community to abandon its cuisine in the name of health. The more respectful path is to highlight strengths already there. The beans and herbs in Latin American cooking. The sea vegetables and fermented foods in East Asian traditions. The pulses, spices, and ghee-tempered greens in South Asian meals. The stews and leafy sides across African cuisines. Almost every food culture has a deeply plant-forward heart. What's changed often is portion size, frequency of frying, and the creeping presence of ready-to-eat, ultra-processed substitutes. When we talk about going back, we often mean going back to the parts of tradition that took time, texture, and conviviality seriously. Globalization offers a mixed harvest. On one hand, it democratizes access to ingredients and ideas. Fusion can be joyful when it's thoughtful. On the other, it homogenizes taste around sugar-salt-fat efficiencies, exporting the same snacks and soft drinks from Lagos to Lima. Big brands can fill every shelf. Small vendors struggle for oxygen. In some neighborhoods, there are food deserts, where fresh produce is scarce. In others, food swamps, where energy-dense options crowd every block. If you ever feel your choices are driven more by what's nearby than what you intend, that's not lack of discipline. It's the built environment doing its job, which is to sell, not to nourish. An even larger landscape looms: sustainability. Agriculture has been a triumph of yield and a test of ecological limits. Monocultures simplify management and maximize harvests, but they thin biodiversity and tire soils. Synthetic fertilizers feed plants quickly, but can leak into rivers, encouraging algal blooms that suffocate fish. Livestock, especially ruminants, emit methane. Forests give way to pasture or feed crops. You hear numbers about food and climate and wonder what an individual plate can possibly do. The sober answer is that dietary shifts are not magic wands. They are levers. Eating more plant foods, wasting less, choosing sustainably caught fish, favoring nuts and legumes over red meat more often than not. These are small levers multiplied across millions of plates. But system-level change matters more. How we price carbon and water, how we support farmers to rebuild soil, how we reform subsidies so they reward foods that nourish both people and planet. Individual action without policy is a whisper in a storm. Policy without individual acceptance is ink on paper. We need both. There's also the quieter emergency of inequality. In the same city, a family throws away berries because they softened overnight, while another family stretches instant noodles across 3 meals. In one school, a child arrives with a bento of colors and textures. In another, breakfast is a sugar drink and a pastry from the corner shop. Malnutrition has 2 faces: deficiency and excess. Children can be short for their age because of early nutrient gaps, and adults can be heavy and undernourished because diets lack the micronutrients to keep tissues functioning well. The remedy is not scolding. It is infrastructure: safe water, reliable cold chains for perishables, public procurement that buys from local growers, school meals that are genuinely balanced, fortification where appropriate, and social protection that makes the healthy option affordable. If you've ever wondered why a salad can cost more than a burger, you're really asking about policies upstream, not lack of lettuce. Let's talk briefly about the gut, the bustling metropolis at the end of your digestive tract. Your microbiome thrives on diversity, especially plant diversity. 30 different plant foods a week is a popular heuristic. You don't need to count obsessively, but it's a useful prompt to rotate. beans, lentils, chickpeas, peas, oats, barley, brown rice, almonds, walnuts, pumpkin seeds, berries, greens, onions, mushrooms, tomatoes. When microbes ferment fiber, they produce short-chain fatty acids. Acetate, propionate, butyrate that calm inflammation, nourish the colon lining, and may even whisper to the brain through chemical messengers. That's one reason a fiber-rich pattern improves more than regularity. It changes your internal weather. Protein aficionados sometimes worry. Can you get enough on a plant-based approach? The honest answer is yes, with planning. Tofu, tempeh, seitan, lentils, chickpeas, edamame, high-protein yogurts, eggs if you eat them. These can hit targets comfortably. If you're fully vegan, mind B12, supplement or fortified foods. Consider iodine if sea vegetables aren't frequent. And think about long-chain omega-3, algae oil, because conversion from flax or chia is limited. Iron is doable. Pair iron-rich plants with vitamin C and space tea or coffee away from iron-heavy meals to boost uptake. None of this requires perfection. It asks for awareness. Now a thorny topic with compassion: weight. Many people want to change body composition for mobility, energy, or health markers. The trap is binary thinking, on plan or off plan, good food or bad food. Real progress is messier. It looks like daily protein anchors, generous vegetables, and unsexy preparation routines, batch cooking grains and legumes on Sundays, roasting trays of vegetables while you answer emails, stirring together a tahini lemon sauce that turns leftovers into something you actually want. It looks like setting up your future self with frictionless choices, packing tomorrow's lunch while tonight's pan is still warm. And it looks like treating sleep as a macronutrient. Sleep loss ramps up appetite and blunts restraint, and no amount of kale can fix a chronically shattered night. Let me tell you a story. A medical student once shadowed a dietitian who seemed to spend suspicious amounts of time talking about forks and bowls and where the fruit lived. "When are we going to talk about antioxidants?" he asked. The dietitian smiled. "Antioxidants are simple," she said. "If there's a fruit on the counter in a clear bowl, you'll eat it. If it's in a drawer under a bag of flour, you'll forget. The bowl is the intervention. We prefer complex explanations because they feel scientific, but often the elegant solution is spatial, not biochemical. Zooming out again, consider policy levers that consistently move population behavior. Taxing sugar-sweetened drinks reduces consumption, especially among heavy consumers. If paired with subsidies for fruits and vegetables, the net effect is progressive rather than punitive. Front-of-pack labeling, simple, standardized, helps people make sense of crowded shelves within the few seconds they actually spend looking. Restricting marketing of ultra-processed products to children protects developing preferences. Reforming school meal standards changes millions of plates at a stroke. None of these policies bans choice. They rebalance a game in which profit has long outrun public health. Technology enters with grand promises. Continuous glucose monitors, designed for diabetes care, now appear on wrists of fitness enthusiasts. Microbiome kits offer personalized advice. Apps nudge you to drink water, eat slowly, or stand up. Some of this helps, particularly if it makes habits sticky. But gadgets should serve the basics, not replace them. A CGM cannot make a donut behave like lentils. A wearable won't repair a 1 a.m. bedtime. Use tech where it reduces friction and anxiety. Meal planning, grocery lists, reminders to thaw the beans you cooked last week. Ignore it where it becomes another source of perfectionism. In the kitchen, think in inputs, not recipes. Cook a pot of barley or brown rice. Simmer a pan of lentils. Roast a mountain of mixed vegetables with olive oil, salt, and a hopeful attitude. Whisk a sauce, tahini with lemon and garlic, or yogurt with herbs, or a salsa verde. Now you have Lego. Breakfast can be yogurt with berries and seeds. Lunch, a grain legume bowl with roasted veg and a drizzle. Dinner, a quick stir-fry with tofu or eggs over the same grain. This is not meal prep as punishment. It's scaffolding for the days when your brain is a dial tone. What about eating out? 2 small rules of thumb. Start with plants and protein, and control the crunch factor. Fried coatings and melt-in-the-mouth textures invite fast eating. Ask for an extra side of greens. Share a starter. Box half the portion for tomorrow at the beginning, not the end. Order the dish you truly want, but eat it slowly, with curiosity rather than apology. A life of abstention is not a life. A life of mindlessness isn't either. Consistency wins over intensity. Let's address supplements with a clear head. If your diet is varied and you spend time in the sun, you may not need many. But there are frequent sensible exceptions. Vitamin D in darker winters, or for people with low levels. B12 for vegans. Iodine if dairy and seafood are rare. Iron if labs say so. Not because you feel tired once in a while. Omega-3 from algae oil if you avoid fish. Be wary of megadoses and miracle claims. Test, don't guess. Correct. Don't collect. And because this is a long listen and you may be drifting a little, here is a gentle, practical check-in. How's your water nearby? Have you unclenched your jaw? Could you take a deeper breath? There is a reason stress management lives inside nutrition conversations. Chronic stress shifts appetite, sleep, and choices. A calmer nervous system makes better lunches almost by accident. On the horizon, food science hums. Cultivated meat is being refined in sterile tanks. Mycoprotein and precision-fermented dairy proteins promise burgers and yogurts without pastures. Vertical farms stack lettuce in glowing warehouses. Blockchain trials trace fish from boat to plate. Some of these will succeed, some will fail, and most will be invisible to you as a consumer except in the price and the label. As always, the question is not, is this futuristic? But does this nourish? Is it safe? Is it affordable? And what does it ask of the planet? Before we land, let's acknowledge the human layer that makes or unmakes good advice. Time, money, caregiving, shift work, grief, celebration, the long tail of habit. The best nutrition plan is not the one with the most citations. It's the one you can live with when your toddler has a fever, your deadlines stack, and the train is late. That usually means a short list of defaults you like enough to repeat, a grocery routine that takes the brain out of the equation, and a kitchen organized like a friendly stage. Knives sharp, pans trustworthy, spices accessible. The cutting board always clean enough to start. So tomorrow, picture your first meal again. Not perfect, just anchored. A protein, a fiber-rich carbohydrate, something colorful, a healthy fat, and a beverage that isn't a dessert in disguise. Picture your midday plan. Can you carry forward leftovers, assemble a bowl in 5 minutes, or pick a place with vegetables and a protein that doesn't arrive in a deep fryer? Picture the evening. Can you trust the Lego, grain, legume, roasted veg, sauce, to build something in 10 minutes while you call a friend? Build the day from these little certainties. Repeat them until they feel like you. And when you forget, because you will, forgive yourself in the language your body understands. A glass of water, an early night, and the next ordinary, extraordinary meal. Market sense. Choosing well without overthinking. Picture your basket divided into 4 quiet promises. Plants, protein, starches with a story, and flavor agents. Plants first. Greens, roots, brassicas. Things with skins that squeak a little under your thumb. If choice overwhelms you, pick by color and shape. 1 leafy, spinach, kale, romaine, Chinese broccoli. 1 crucifer, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage. 1 root, carrots, beets, sweet potato. 1 fruit veg, tomatoes, peppers, aubergine. And a wild card, mushrooms or seaweed, or something you've never cooked. That's texture and fiber baked in. Protein next, and here we favor anchors, not absolutes. Eggs if you eat them. Tinned fish, sardines, mackerel, tuna in spring water or olive oil. Unfashionable and mighty. Plain yogurt or skyr, tofu tempeh, a pack of firm cheese you can grate. Dried or tinned legumes, lentils, chickpeas, kidney beans. If you like meat, think occasion, not staple, and choose pieces with a purpose. Chicken thighs for a tray bake, a small piece of salmon you'll stretch with beans and greens. The anchor's job is to steady the meal. It doesn't have to be the whole boat. Starches with a story means whole grains you can cook once and live off all week. Brown rice, barley, bulgur, farro, oats. If time is your enemy, there's no shame in pre-cooked pouches. Scan for short ingredient lists. Potatoes and sweet potatoes belong here too. They're not villains. Your toppings do most of the moralizing. Flavor agents are how you avoid blandness. Fresh herbs when you can. Garlic, onions, scallions, citrus. A good vinegar. Sherry, red wine, rice. olive oil, a jar of tahini that turns lemon and garlic into velvet, a paste or two, miso, curry paste, harissa, gochujang, tiny things with huge return on investment. Now invent a small ritual. When you get home, wash what can be washed. Spin greens dry, roast something right away while you unpack. The oven was going to be there anyway. Maybe a tray of mixed vegetables slicked with oil and sprinkled with salt and a little smoked paprika. When they cool, slip them into a container. You won't know how much you needed future you to have roasted peppers until a Tuesday you almost order takeaway. Batch cooking, minus the dread batch cooking, is not penitence. It's choreography. Think in bases, boosters, and bridges. Bases, 1 grain, 1 legume, 1 root. Pot of barley, pot of lentils, tray of cubed sweet potatoes. Boosters, 2 sauces and 1 pickle. Tahini lemon garlic, yogurt herb, quick pickled red onions, vinegar, sugar, salt, 10 minutes. Bridges, protein you can drop into anything. A tray of baked tofu cubes, a pan of pulled chicken, a jar of marinated beans. Now, a 10-minute assembly line is always possible. Barley, plus lentils, plus roast veg, plus tahini swirl, plus pickled onions. Or greens, plus sweet potatoes, plus yogurt, herb, plus tofu. Or leftover rice transformed into fried rice with eggs, frozen peas, scallions, and a lightning splash of soy and sesame. If you struggle with the same again, rotate spice profiles. The same grain bean veg stack can travel continents with different bridges. Cumin coriander plus lemon for Levant. Turmeric garam masala plus lime for South Asia. Smoked paprika plus sherry vinegar for Iberia. Soy ginger sesame for East Asia. Your kitchen is a passport office. The 15-minute dinner clinic, you're home late. You're hungry now. 3 outlines. The skillet bowl. Sauté chopped onion in olive oil. Add a bag of frozen mixed veg. You are a genius for having it. Salt, pepper, chili flakes. Crack in 2 eggs. Stir until softly set. Tip over leftover grain. Finish with tahini lemon or soy sesame. The bean toast. Smash a tin of cannellini beans with olive oil, lemon, salt, garlic. Toast thick bread. Rub with cut tomato or garlic. Pile beans high. Shower with parsley, pepper, and whatever crunchy thing you have. Toasted seeds, nuts, crumbs. The soup sprint. In a pot, soften onions and carrots. Add stock, or water plus bouillon. A tin of tomatoes, a tin of lentils. Simmer 8 minutes. Spin in handfuls of greens until they surrender. Top with yogurt and a bright squeeze of lemon. That's dinner before your streaming service asks if you're still watching. Cooking for one. Cooking for many. For one. Embrace modular cooking. Make pieces, not platters. A small pan is your ally. It heats fast and never punishes you for wanting a single portion. Use eggs, tins, frozen veg, and sauces as your rotation engine. Freeze in small containers, not large ones. Single-serve ease beats a block of ice. For families, your friend is template repetition with variable toppings. Tacos every Tuesday. But the filling changes. Black beans and corn. Shredded chicken and peppers, sautéed mushrooms and onions, pasta night with different sauces, tomato olive capers, pesto, garlicky greens and lemon, sheet pan dinners where everything cooks together, chicken thighs, potatoes, Brussels sprouts, or chickpeas, aubergine, red peppers, cumin. Children learn through exposure. Your job is not to win a single dinner, but to curate 1,000 gentle, unremarkable yeses. The night shift and the long commute shift work asks a lot of physiology. Anchor yourself with pre-planned meals that travel and resist spoilage. Grain legume bowls, frittatas cut into wedges, overnight oats with seeds and fruit, yogurt pots with nuts. Split caffeine earlier rather than later. Pair it with water. Pack crunchy veg and something salty sour to wake your mouth when your brain drifts. A few olives, quick pickles, carrot sticks. On the way home, avoid the hungry shop by having a small, savory bite before you leave. Sleep in a dark cave if you can. Your appetite hormones will thank you. Sport, strength, and the simple rules that do 90% of the work for endurance lovers. Carbs before, fluids and carbs during, protein after. A banana and peanut butter pre-run. Water or sports drink on longer efforts. A proper meal within 2 hours. Grain, protein, veg. For lifters, protein distribution across the day matters more than a single post-workout bolus. Aim for 20 to 40 g per meal depending on size and goals. Both groups. Sleep is your strongest legal performance enhancer. No supplement will redeem chronic 4-hour nights. Creatine works for strength and power and increasingly shows interesting cognitive benefit. It's cheap and well-studied. Caffeine works, time it. Beta-alanine can help in specific high-intensity domains. The itching is normal if annoying. The rest? Spend your money on food, shoes, a good pan, and maybe a better pillow. Pregnancy, postpartum, and feeding small humans. In pregnancy, energy needs don't skyrocket early, but nutrient density does. Folate, iron, iodine, choline, omega-3s matter. Prenatal vitamins cover gaps. Fish 1 to 2 times a week, low mercury options. Eggs for choline, legumes and greens for folate and iron, yogurt or fortified alternatives for iodine and calcium. Nausea is real. Eat what you can, when you can. Ginger helps some. Small, frequent meals keep the ship steadier than grand voyages. Postpartum, hunger can feel bottomless, especially with breastfeeding. Build a grab tray before the baby arrives. Nuts, dates, oat bars, tinned fish, crackers, squeezable yogurt pouches, fruit you can eat one-handed. Accept help. Say yes when a friend offers soup. Sleep will fray. Feed the caregivers too. Feeding toddlers is a theater of patience. Offer what the adults eat, with one safe item also on the table, and keep the tone neutral. Studies show pressure backfires. Exposure builds acceptance. A child may need to see a food a dozen times before tasting. That's not stubbornness. It's biology. Aging well. Appetite, protein, and softness with yourself. As we age, appetite can wane while protein needs per kilogram increase to protect muscle and bone. Breakfast might be yogurt and fruit with a scoop of whey or soy protein stirred in. Lunch a bean-rich soup with whole grain toast. Dinner a soft stew over barley. Texture matters if chewing is a challenge. Slow braises, mashed legumes, tender fish, and stewed fruit keep dignity on the plate. Vitamin D and calcium deserve attention. Falls prevention starts with strong legs and good light bulbs. Travel, airports, stations, and your plan. You can be the person who always finds a decent option. Survey the terminals in your mind. There's a yogurt pot in reach, a salad bar somewhere with proper protein, a place that will sell you a hard-boiled egg, a sachet of nuts, a banana. Build portable rituals. A zip bag with oats, seeds, a small spoon, and a pinch of salt turns the hotel kettle into breakfast. A collapsible container makes last night's restaurant vegetables tomorrow's lunch. Hydrate, especially on planes. Walk, not to burn calories, but to clear fog. The art of eating out without an internal argument. Go for delight, not damage control. The first decision drives most of the rest. Pick a place that cooks. Scan the menu for plants and protein you love, and ask for a side of greens as if it were the most normal thing in the world. It is. Share a starter. Box a portion early. Say yes to bread if you want it, and no if you don't, without monologue. Dessert can be an ordering problem, not a willpower problem. 2 spoons, 1 shared sweet or coffee and fruit. The point of a restaurant is not macros. It's conversation. Budget nutrition. The surprisingly luxurious logic of cheap food. Beans, lentils, rice, oats, potatoes, cabbage, carrots, onions, frozen veg, tinned tomatoes, eggs. These make princely meals for student money. A bag of lentils is a small investment with ridiculous returns. Learn 1 pot per ingredient. Pot of beans, soaked or tinned, simmered with onion, bay, a splash of oil and salt. Pot of rice, 1.5 with a pinch of salt, bring to boil, lid, 12 minutes, rest. Pot of oats, 1.3 with a pinch of salt, simmer until creamy. Flavor with vinegar, not everything needs more oil, and a grated clove of garlic. Time is money too. Frozen vegetables are time-rich food. If there's a cheap produce aisle, shop it, and build the week around what's abundant. Imperfect carrots taste exactly like perfect ones inside a soup. Whole chickens cost less per kilo than cutlets. Roast one. Shred meat across days. And make stock from the bones. Luxury is often softness, a soup that welcomes you home, a stew that forgives your day. Imagine morning, not a perfect morning, your morning. There's the usual friction, a phone lighting up too early, a reminder you meant to snooze, a sink that is somehow never empty. Breakfast sits at the hinge between your biology and your day's demands, which is why it helps to think in shapes rather than in recipes. The first shape is the warm bowl. Oats simmered with a pinch of salt until creamy, with a spoonful of yogurt for tang, a handful of berries, and a dusting of seeds for texture. If the idea of cooking at dawn feels impossible, make it the night before. Oats don't mind time. The second shape is the quick sizzle. A pan warmed while you rinse your face, a film of oil shimmering, a handful of chopped greens thrown in with a little water to steam, then 2 eggs cracked in and folded gently, toast alongside. The third shape is the cold assemble. Yogurt in a glass jar, fruit layered like a little stained glass window, nuts and seeds, a spoon of honey if you like sweetness, and the lid that makes it portable. The point is not variety for variety's sake. It's reliability. If one of these shapes becomes your lane marker 3 mornings out of 5, you'll feel the subtle steadiness that structure gives. And that steadiness carries further than you think. Pantry, then, as a quiet ally. A pantry is not a museum of aspirational purchases. It's a toolbox. On the top shelf, the long game, tins of tomatoes, tins of beans, jars of lentils, bags of rice and barley and oats, a tin of sardines tucked behind the tea. At eye level, the week's helpers. Olive oil that tastes like something, vinegars that brighten like a lamp switched on in a gray room, soy sauce and sesame oil, mustard and miso, a jar of tahini. Below, the tins and jars that save you. Coconut milk for when curry is all you can imagine, chickpeas for instant hummus, a jar of capers that turns a sad sauce into something alive. In a drawer, spices. Cumin you can smell before you open the jar, smoked paprika for the taste of warmth, turmeric for color, chili for nerve. Where possible, put things in clear containers with names. You will use what you can see. Where not possible, promise yourself a once-a-month pantry tidy that is less about cleaning and more about remembering what's already in your life. The cheapest shopping trip is the one you take in your own kitchen. Seasons still matter, even in a global market that ships tomatoes in winter and strawberries in December. Try this. Pick one thing that is genuinely in season where you live, and give it the stage once a week. In spring, that might be asparagus, cooked simply in a pan with butter and a squeeze of lemon, served with a poached egg and toast. In summer, thick slices of tomato with salt and olive oil and torn basil, a piece of bread to catch the juices. In autumn, squash roasted until its edges darken, tossed with chickpeas and cranberries and a scattering of feta. In winter, cabbage cut into thick wedges and roasted until sweet, dressed with mustard and vinegar and capers, balanced by a soft grain. You're not becoming a seasonal purist. You're choosing to let the best of the moment be obvious sometimes, because that kind of eating is simple, and simple eating is the kind you can repeat without resentment. Now for a slightly different kind of practice, a sensory practice. Take one meal this week and eat it with the curiosity of a first-time visitor. Notice the weight of the fork in your hand, the sounds of your own chewing, the way the flavors arrive. The salt first, then the acid, the gentle fat that carries aroma into your nose. Notice when hunger recedes and satisfaction appears. We often talk about mindful eating as if it were a spiritual practice. Perhaps it is, but it's also a mechanical reality. Eating slowly gives your satiety hormones a chance to speak. Chewing fully changes what arrives in your stomach. Pausing between bites turns a 15-minute swallow into a 25-minute meal, which changes the arc of your afternoon. If that sounds indulgent, consider how expensive a single frantic decision can be at 3 p.m, when your lunch evaporated and your patience with it. The extra 8 minutes you gave the morning meal were not optional. They were system design. Let's walk alongside a few lives for a while, because advice that isn't lived tends to evaporate. Meet Lena, a student whose schedule is an alphabet soup. Lectures, labs, a part-time shift at a cafe, and a long commute in between. Lena's temptation is to drink her meals, coffee for breakfast, a smoothie for lunch, a vending machine fix on the bus, and then ravenous at 9. The adjustment is small, not heroic. She sets up a standard breakfast in a jar she can make 3 at a time: yogurt, oats, frozen berries, chopped nuts, a pinch of cinnamon. She buys a small lunchbox and turns the cafe's leftover grilled vegetables into something she can take with a tin of beans and a wedge of lemon. She adds a bottle of water to her bag. This single object prevents her from using thirst to justify another sweet drink. 3 weeks later, she notices she no longer crashes at 4, and the bus no longer smells like defeat. She hasn't changed everything. She's changed the hinge points. Now Daniel, who works in an office where the building is a maze of choices that are not really choices. Meetings with biscuits, late afternoons with muffins, a staff kitchen with a bottomless jar of candy. He starts by placing a fruit bowl on his own desk and telling a colleague he'll bring a batch of nuts for the week if the colleague brings a bag of apples. He writes a very short email to himself every Monday. Lunch options within 5 minutes, salad bar, soup place, the small Vietnamese cafe with grilled fish. He also puts a big glass on his desk, heavy enough to feel like an object that belongs there, and fills it when he fills his coffee. He can't redesign the office food environment, but he can carve out little islands within it. And when he inevitably eats the biscuits, he notices whether he ate them deliberately or because they were in reach. Deliberate biscuits are delicious. Accidental biscuits are education. Then Sarah, a caregiver to a parent whose dementia makes days unpredictable and nights longer than they should be. Time is a frayed ribbon in her house. She chooses softness as strategy. She makes a pot of red lentils every Sunday afternoon because red lentils ask for very little. Onion and garlic, a little turmeric and cumin, a handful of tomatoes, water and thyme. She keeps bread in the freezer, pre-sliced, for toasting. She buys yogurt in smaller containers because she cannot rely on the big tub staying clean. She gives herself permission to eat the same thing 3 nights in a row, and she texts a friend who loves her and asks to be reminded to drink water at noon. The foods in her week are not impressive. They are manageable. There is dignity in manageable. A quick detour to the gym, or the track, or the yoga mat. It can be tempting to fall for complicated fueling strategies. The window, the ratios, the supplements with names that sound like race cars. In truth, if you train, the fundamentals carry you. For morning exercisers, a small snack, banana with peanut butter, toast with egg, yogurt with honey, beats fasting rage almost every time. After, a proper meal with protein and fiber matters most. For evening folk, avoid letting work annihilate dinner and then training on fumes. The performance penalty is real. If you want a simple rule, anchor each meal with 20 to 30 grams of protein, more if you're bigger or if your goals ask for it. Include a visible source of fiber. Eat enough carbohydrate to match your output. If you need a supplement beyond food, it is probably creatine, unless your doctor says otherwise. And of course, the one trend that never goes out of style: sleep the length your life will allow. Holidays arrive like music from another room. Sudden, a little loud and nostalgic. They bring feasts which are more about time and kinship than about macros, and that is how it should be. The trick is to treat the feast as a festival, and to treat the regular days in between as ordinary. Thanksgiving can be a full orchestra. The Tuesday before and the Friday after can be a string quartet. If you bring a dish, bring one that expands the table's options. A big salad with bitter greens and citrus. A tray of roasted carrots glossy with olive oil and cardamom. A bowl of beans with rosemary and lemon zest. Eat with your eyes and your stories. There is no virtue in puritanical sipping at a party. The virtue is in the season as a whole, not the single night. There is a knot in many hearts called emotional eating. It's not a flaw. It's a strategy your body chose before you had better ones. You can respect it without letting it run your kitchen. When distress rises, reach first for a regulation that doesn't ask your stomach to be a therapist. A hot shower, a phone call. 5 minutes on the floor with your feet up the wall and your breath lengthened on the exhale. Then, if food feels like the comfort you still want, choose it consciously and feed the feeling you're trying to feed. If you crave crunch, build crunch into vegetables and nuts. If you crave cream, let yogurt or soup be the texture. If you crave warmth, let a baked potato carry butter and salt to your nerves. Shame makes everything stickier. Curiosity loosens knots. Sleep, the quiet sovereign, holds nutrition by the hand more than we admit. A short night leans your appetite toward quick energy and highly palatable foods. A long night lends you patience for cooking and fewer swings during the day. This is not a moral statement. It's a hormonal one. If you have to choose a night this week to protect, choose the one before your hardest day. Give yourself a bedtime ritual that a child would recognize. Darken the room early. Turn down the temperature a touch. Drink something warm if you like, not alcohol, which is counterfeit rest. Put your phone somewhere it must be fetched. If you wake in the night, as many do, resist the light, which tells your brain it's morning. The body doesn't need perfection. It needs a pattern it can trust. Caffeine and alcohol are not villains. They are chemicals that deserve respect. Caffeine is a ladder you can climb in the morning and a debt you repay in the evening. Place it earlier and in smaller steps if sleep matters. Alcohol owes you 2 payments: the fuzzy sleep you accept and the hydration you must restore. If you drink, drink with ritual and water in hand, and eat something you love that is not only salt. Learning your own thresholds is grown-up science. Hydration is a word that can sound like a lifestyle brand. Let's call it drinking water and beverages that aren't desserts. A glass beside your coffee, a bottle on your desk, a small carafe on the dinner table. If you dislike plain water, make it interesting. A slice of cucumber, a little mint, a wedge of citrus, a pinch of salt on a hot day. If you enjoy tea, reframe it as both hydration and a pause. If you enjoy sparkling water, let the bubbles become the fun you used to ask of juice. Thirst can be quiet. Put reminders where your eyes already are. Taste is not only flavor. It's texture, temperature, aroma, sound. If you learn to build plates with these senses in mind, you need fewer rules. Crunch against cream, heat against cool, acid against fat. Think of a simple bowl. Warm grain, cool yogurt, crispy onions, soft roasted vegetables, a bright squeeze of lemon, a sprinkle of nuts. Or a salad, bitter leaves and sweet fruit and salty cheese and a dressing that pushes perfume up into your nose as you lift your fork. Eating well is not punishment. It is craft sauces are a home cook's fastest kind of magic. Learn 3 by heart and your week opens. Tahini whisked with lemon juice, a grated clove of garlic, salt, and enough cold water to thin it from mud to silk. Yogurt with herbs, lemon zest, and a little olive oil. A green sauce blitzed from parsley, capers, garlic, anchovy if you eat fish, olive oil, vinegar. Spoon any of these over roasted vegetables, grilled tofu, beans, fish, eggs, or a meadow of bitter greens. You have transformed restraint into pleasure. When in doubt, sauce the vegetables and let the protein be plain. It is simpler and hits the same notes. Time-boxing cooking is how busy lives avoid takeaway by inertia. Know exactly what you can cook in 10 minutes, in 20, and in 40, and on which nights each applies. 10 minutes is eggs, tofu, beans, greens, bread, noodles with a quick sauce, soups built from tins in haste. 20 is grains that were par-cooked on Sunday. Trays of vegetables from the freezer turned golden in a hot oven. A stew assembled from sofrito waiting in the fridge. 40 is the roast chicken that feeds the week, the pot of beans that perfumes the house, the lasagna that buys you 3 dinners. If you set a timer for each, cooking becomes a game with a clock, rather than a chore with no end. Cleaning as you go is not moral excellence. It's the only way kitchens stay welcoming. A bowl on the counter for scraps so you aren't walking to the bin 12 times. A damp cloth under your cutting board so it doesn't slide. A sink that holds hot, soapy water into which utensils retire the moment they're done. A quick wipe of the stove while it's still warm. The energy you spend here returns to you tomorrow when you enter a room that makes you want to chop an onion rather than sigh at the sticky spill of yesterday. Cooking lives or dies on friction. Cleaning lowers friction. The math is compassionate. If numbers help you, pick the ones that reflect a life rather than a body alone. Non-scale victories carry more motivation than the scale. How your knees feel on stairs. How your head feels at 3 in the afternoon. Whether you look forward to cooking again. Whether sleep arrived earlier. Whether your lunch traveled with you instead of against you. If you need to track behavior rather than outcome. Days you cooked at home. Glasses of water. Servings of plants. Number of meals with a protein anchor. Nights you met your bedtime within half an hour. You cannot will your body into outcomes, but you can guide your days into patterns that make outcomes more likely. When outcomes arrive, they feel earned rather than policed. Ordering food in a language that is not your first can be its own rehearsal for IELTS listening and speaking. Practice phrases that help you steer your plate without fuss. Could I have an extra side of vegetables? Would it be possible to grill instead of fry? Could you leave the dressing on the side? I'd love a half portion of rice and a salad, please. Tone is everything. Friendly, normal, not apologetic. Restaurants are built to accommodate. You are not being difficult. You are being specific. Let's talk relapse, which is really just a pause you didn't plan. You wake after a week of travel, or a week of illness, or a week of deadlines, and find that your kitchen feels like a stranger's. There is an elegant 3-step way back: water, sleep, and one cooked thing. The water interrupts a spiral. The sleep repays attention. The cooked thing, any cooked thing, reasserts that you are the kind of person who can feed yourself. A pot of rice counts. A pan of eggs counts. A tray of carrots counts. A soup counts most because it offers you several bowls of the same decision. When you feel better, you do better. Sometimes you have to do better before you feel better. Negotiating social pressure is rarely about food. It's about belonging. You can be gracious without being compliant. If someone pushes a plate at you that you don't want, try a soft deflection that gives them what they actually want, which is usually acknowledgement. That looks incredible. I'm going to start with this and come back to it. Or, I'm saving room for dessert. I heard yours is famous. Or, I'm pacing myself. I'm a slow eater. If questioned, smile and change the subject to something that belongs to them. Ask them about the dish, about their day, about their garden. People want connection more than they want you to eat a third slice of anything. Give them connection. Community cooking multiplies willpower into culture. If you can, start or join a very small circle of people, 3, 4, 5, who cook for one another once a month. Set a low bar. A big pot of something you can scoop into jars. A plaza of chopped vegetables and dips for an evening of talk. A bread-baking afternoon that leaves you all with loaves for the freezer. Food shared is food that becomes a story, and stories are what we reach for when habit falters. 2 tiny meditations for taste you can practice in a minute, anywhere, that quietly sharpen your cooking. The first is salt and acid. Taste something bland and add a pinch of salt. Taste again. Add a splash of lemon or vinegar. Taste again. Feel life arrive. The second is heat and time. Stop cooking 1 minute before you think it's done. Taste. Cook 1 minute longer. Taste again. Recognize the moment when raw sweetens to savory. These are small acts of power. You are less at the mercy of recipes. You are more at home in your kitchen. We have moved through a lot of landscapes together now. The mechanics of appetite. The music of texture. The choreography of batch cooking. The compassion of relapse. The quiet politics of the pantry. If you need a map that fits in your pocket for the days you don't remember a word of this, here it is, spoken aloud so you can memorize the rhythm as much as the content. Start the day with a stable shape. Keep water within reach of your coffee. Put plants where you can see them and snacks where you cannot. Anchor meals with protein and give each plate a color that did not come from a packet. Cook one thing on Sundays that your Wednesday self will thank you for. Sauce vegetables. Salt with courage and brighten with acid. Buy a knife you like and keep it sharp. Use the freezer like a savings account. Outsource to tins without shame. Eat slowly enough to hear your body's enough. Sleep as if tomorrow depended on it, because it does. When you stumble, drink water, cook one thing, and go to bed. Build a kitchen that wants you back. And finally, let's end the way we began, with a breath, with a small picture, with a moment that could happen tonight. You are standing at the stove in a light that is kinder than the one in the office, with a pan that proves you can make heat do what you want. You flick oil into it and watch it loosen. You slice an onion and listen to it meet the shimmer. Your shoulders drop. A smell rises that tells you you are here, and this is the life you inhabit. You add garlic, then chickpeas, then a spoon of tomato paste, then a splash of water. You salt, you taste. You squeeze a lemon. You taste again. You stir in a handful of spinach until it slumps. You spoon it over yesterday's rice and dollop yogurt on top. You carry the bowl to the table, which is not perfectly clear of clutter, and you move a book and a bill and make a space the size of your hunger. You sit. You take the first bite. It is not perfect. It is yours. And that, quietly and without applause, is how a person becomes well, one ordinary, extraordinary bowl at a time. Confidence in a kitchen doesn't begin with fancy gear. It begins with a couple of moves you trust when your brain is a fogged window. The first move is the sauté plus. You soften onions in oil with a pinch of salt. You add a second aromatic, garlic, ginger, chili, or all three, and then you drop in the protein that suits your life today. Beans from a tin, tofu cubes, eggs beaten in a jug, or slices of pre-cooked chicken. The plus is something green, the plus is a squeeze of citrus, the plus is a herb handful. Spoon over rice or barley or toast. You could do this in your sleep, which is exactly the point. The second move is the hot tray. A sheet pan in a hot oven. A tumble of cut vegetables slicked with oil, salt, and a spice. 20 minutes later, you have a landscape of sweetness and char. Add chickpeas or halloumi in the last 10 minutes. Drizzle with yogurt and lemon. The third move is the quick broth. A pot of water with a spoon of miso or bouillon, sliced mushrooms and greens, cubes of tofu or pulled chicken, noodles dropped in to soften, a flick of sesame oil at the end. These 3 moves are like 3 chords on a guitar. You can play 1,000 songs. Curiosity is what keeps you from boredom once the chords are fluent. If you've never toasted whole spices, tonight is the night to heat a dry pan and let cumin seeds and coriander seeds pop, and perfume the room before you grind them with the bottom of a jar. If you've never cooked with a bitter green, buy chicory or dandelion or mustard greens and tame them with garlic and lemon. If you've never made a pickle, slice a red onion whisper thin, cloak it in vinegar, sugar, and salt, and watch it turn neon and friendly. If you've never beaten a sauce into submission, whisk tahini with lemon and ice-cold water until it lightens and loosens and becomes silk instead of cement. You don't need a new cuisine. You need 1 new gesture each month. Gestures become grammar. Travel asks for gestures too. The ones you use to feed yourself when a menu is in a language you can't read and your day has been long. Before you land, spin a short list in your head. Markets for fruit and bread and cheese. Street food vendors who grill rather than deep fry. Bowls and broths and stews. Cafes with salads that look like someone actually cut a vegetable that day. Learn 3 phrases. Grilled, please. Vegetables on the side. And no sugar, thank you. Bring a tiny kit in your bag. A folding spoon or fork. A zip bag for leftovers. A sachet of nuts. Build a ritual. Buy a piece of fruit and a bottle of water as soon as you put your bag down. Your brain needs a baseline before it tries to be clever. Travel is not the time for strict rules. It's the time for gentle rails. When you want the thing you came for, a pastry in Paris, gelato in Rome, a deep-fried miracle at a night market, sit down with it. Eat it slowly. Let joy be not a binge, but a conversation. Special diets deserve both clarity and kindness. If you're living gluten-free because your body insists, keep starches you love in reach so the rest of your plate stays generous. Potatoes and sweet potatoes, rice and polenta, corn tortillas, buckwheat soba, quinoa. If you're low FODMAP for a season while your gut calms, cook a pot of rice congee that soothes. Use garlic-infused oil to capture perfume without the molecule that troubles you. And remember, this is a diagnostic season, not a life sentence. If you're vegetarian or vegan, let legumes be a pleasure, not a duty. Simmer chickpeas with bay and onion and olive oil until they're soft as pearls. Sauté mushrooms until they squeak and then sigh. Let tofu soak in soy and ginger before it hits the heat. If you keep kosher, halal, or follow fasting rhythms, carry forward the same pattern. Plant foundation, protein anchor, color, and a fat that carries flavor. The kitchen bends for belief. It doesn't break. Chronic illness sits at the table too. If you're living with type 2 diabetes, think less about prohibition and more about pace. Build meals with fiber and protein up front, which slows the river of glucose and gives your pancreas room to breathe. Beans in your salad, nuts with your fruit, yogurt beneath your berries. A vegetable soup that starts dinner before the starch arrives. If you eat bread, choose the kind that fights back when you chew. If you love rice, let half the bowl be vegetables and protein that taste as interesting as the rice. If you use a meter or a monitor, treat the numbers like weather. Learn your patterns and pack an umbrella rather than declaring the sky an enemy. If you're walking with hypertension, let potassium be your quiet ally. Bananas and potatoes and beans and greens. Let your salt be smarter, present where it matters and absent where it doesn't. Swapped for lemon and vinegar and herbs that make your mouth believe you salted more than you did. If your heart is recovering, remember that fatigue is honest. Cook in the morning when your energy is taller. Make soups and stews that reheat faithfully. Ask for help in the language of specifics. Could you chop onions for me? Is easier to answer than I need help. Recovery from illness, or grief, or burnout has a food grammar of its own. Soft, warm, mild, repeatable. Porridge with bananas and a thread of honey. chicken and rice soup with plenty of parsley, toast with beans and olive oil, yogurt with stewed fruit, scrambled eggs that leave the pan still glossy. Your mouth may not want crunch or spice. That's not a regression, it's a request. Recovery also loves containers, jars of soup, portions of rice, little tubs of hummus, because decisions are heavy when you're healing. If friends ask what to bring, say, soup, and please label it, and bread you like more than I will, and fruit that doesn't need peeling. Let a week be simple. Let a month be simple. Health returns faster when meals don't compete for your attention. Let's slip into the economics of your plate, because budgets are real and virtue is not a currency. The unit that saves the most money is not the coupon. It's the plan. Write 5 dinners on a scrap of paper before you shop. Not elaborate recipes, but shapes. Bean chili, egg and veg skillet, roast tray, soup, pasta plus greens. Check your pantry before you leave. Most of us buy duplicates because we don't remember the first jar hiding behind the flour. Buy legumes dry when time allows, and tinned when time is short. Both are bargains. Buy grains in bags, not little boutique boxes. Frozen vegetables are often cheaper and nutritionally equal. Their convenience is not a trick. It's a service. Meat is expensive. Treat it like a guest, not a tenant. A little chorizo to perfume a pot, a small piece of bacon to render fat for greens, a small steak sliced across a generous salad, not the other way around. If you live near markets, go late when sellers price to move. If you don't, learn the patterns of your store and your own appetite. Buying a mountain of greens only to throw them away is not thrift. It's theater. Sustainability has a home kitchen version that isn't all or nothing. Waste less by loving leftovers. Rice becomes fried rice with eggs and peas and scallions. Roast vegetables become soup with a blend and a little stock. Stale bread becomes croutons or breadcrumbs or panzanella with tomatoes and vinegar. Compost if you can. If you can't, at least keep a bowl for peels and trimmings and notice the pile, because noticing shapes behavior tomorrow. Store food intelligently. Herbs in a jar of water in the fridge like flowers. Greens washed and spun and wrapped in a towel. Jars labeled so your Tuesday knows what your Sunday meant. Buy what you can carry home with ideas attached. Don't buy a vegetable you respect only as a sermon. Sustainability also means sustaining the cook. If you burn out, takeaway wins. Build in a night off that isn't a defeat. A plate of good bread, cheese, olives, cut vegetables, fruit. The planet doesn't need your penance. It needs your stamina. If you've never fermented anything, there is joy on the other side of a jar. Shred a cabbage, salt it by feel. Enough that it tastes like the sea after a storm. Push it into a clean jar until it weeps its own brine, weigh it down, and let it murmur on your counter for a week. Sauerkraut is cabbages teaching you patience and microbes teaching you humility. If that sounds too wild, try yogurt. Heat milk. Cool it to the temperature of a warm bath. Stir in a spoon of live yogurt. Wrap the pot in a towel, and let the house do the rest. Fermentation is a reminder that your kitchen is part of the world, not a sealed lab. It also puts cheap, delicious, living food in the fridge. Baking bread is optional and also a spell you can cast when a week feels like sand slipping through your fingers. Sourdough is a journey. A simple tin loaf is a walk in your neighborhood. Flour, water, yeast, salt. The sums are small, the payoff is large, the smell is the story you tell yourself about your life when the news has been unkind. If gluten isn't your friend, bake soda bread with oat flour and yogurt, or banana bread that is more banana than sugar, or a flatbread in a pan that takes 5 minutes and feels like a festival under a spoon of hummus. Warm bread makes people come into the kitchen. That is not a diet technique. It is a strategy for keeping humans close to one another. Spices are not decoration. They are lenses. Learn one blend each season and write it on a piece of tape on the jar you keep in front. In winter, Ras El Hanout turns carrots and chickpeas into a warm blanket. In spring, Zaatar teaches you to love yogurt with olive oil and lemon. In summer, chaat masala sprinkles lightning on watermelon. In autumn, a homemade garam masala makes potatoes taste like they were grown in a story. Toast spices whole and grind them when you want to feel competent and alive. Stir them into oil at the beginning of a dish so fat can carry their perfume where water cannot. Spices are small money for big theater. A palate can be trained without turning dinner into homework. Start with acid. Keep lemon, lime, and a bottle of vinegar within reach. When a dish is dull, add a pinprick of brightness, and watch it wake up like a person splashed with cold water after a nap. then salt. Salting a pot at the end teaches impatience. Salting in layers teaches grace. Then heat. Not chili heat alone, but the heat of the pan and the time you give it. Vegetables are sweet creatures. Let them cross the border from raw to roasted and they will show you what they wanted to be. Taste as you cook. Taste before you serve. Taste the next day and see how time rearranged the furniture. Let's sketch a week that could belong to anyone, with just enough detail that it feels plausible and not enough that it feels prescriptive. Monday night is a sheet pan dinner. Chickpeas, aubergine, and red peppers tossed with cumin and paprika, roasted until they catch, finished with yogurt and lemon. Tuesday is pasta with a sauce that started as onions and garlic and tomatoes and olives and capers and ended as something that makes you feel like you can speak Italian. A big salad beside it because leaves make everything better. Wednesday is the soup you made on Sunday. A bowl that warms you while you answer emails and a slice of bread to turn it into a meal. Thursday is an egg night. A frittata with the roasted vegetables from Monday and some spinach you washed because a podcast told you to, with a salad of tomatoes and cucumbers and dill. Friday is a stir-fry. Tofu pressed and browned, broccoli charred, rice left over from something you don't even remember, a sauce of soy and ginger and sesame and a little honey. Saturday is for friends or for a quiet movie and a plate of odds and ends. Sunday is the day you cook something for future you. A pot of beans until tender and glossy. A tray of vegetables until their edges sing. A grain that cools on the counter and then moves to the fridge like a promise. If you care for someone else, children, elders, housemates with mad schedules, think of the table as a stage where you invite them to the same play in different costumes. The play is protein plus plant plus starchy comfort plus flavor. For a child, beans with rice and grated cheese and a few peas. For a teenager, the same beans in a tortilla with salsa and cabbage. For an elder, the beans mashed into a soup with a swirl of olive oil and some buttered bread. For the friend who lifts heavy things, the beans beside roasted potatoes and a big pile of greens and a spoon of yogurt sauce. 1 pot, 4 plates, nobody cooked twice. That's not efficiency. That's respect for time. Mindfulness turns from an abstract word into a utensil when you tether it to chewing. If you put your fork down every few bites and take a breath that is longer than your last thought, you'll hear the whisper of satiety earlier. If you begin meals with a few sips of something warm, a broth, a tea, your body will slide into a calmer gear. If you eat with other people and ask them a question you genuinely want the answer to, you will eat at the speed of story. Bodies digest kindness more easily than they digest haste. What about the days when food is nothing but fuel, and you resent even the suggestion of ceremony? Those days are real. On those days, remove friction like a pit crew. A smoothie that is more yogurt and oats and fruit than ice. A tin of fish you tip onto toast and eat standing at the counter. A handful of nuts and a piece of fruit, and a square of chocolate while you answer the last email you should have ignored. Not every meal is a poem. The point of the calm meals is that they make room for the rushed ones without guilt piling up like dishes. You might wonder where weight loss or results live in this podcast that keeps talking about bowls and beans and sleep and lemons. They live in the margins, not the headlines. Bodies often change when days become predictable because the nervous system stops bracing for chaos. People often lose weight when the foods they like become easier to reach than the foods that punish them later. A walk after dinner often does more for blood sugar than a spreadsheet ever did for a person's resolve. The meal you ate slowly at a table is different from the same meal eaten in a car. Your gut knows this even if your tracker doesn't. If you need a metric, pick one that gives you something to celebrate each day. Steps. Not steps that impress strangers, but steps that move your lymph and your ideas. Liters of water. Meals cooked at home. Hours slept. Fruits and vegetables like a childish game of counting colors. We are nearing another ending, which is really a beginning where you stand up and decide whether the next thing is a cup of tea or a short walk or simply bed. Before we leave, a tiny coda on gratitude that isn't saccharine. Thank the person who grew something on your plate, even if that person is a stranger 1,000 kilometers away. Thank the version of yourself who bought the lemons and washed the greens. Thank the pan for not sticking and the onion for turning sweet. Thank the ordinary for being the engine that makes the extraordinary possible. And if today was not a day that went how you hoped, thank the bed for being a place where everything resets. You don't need a new life to eat well. You need a friendlier rhythm inside the life you already have. That rhythm is water before coffee, breakfast with a shape, plants where you can see them, a protein that keeps you steady, grains that remember the field, sauces that taste like travel, a freezer that pays interest, a knife you enjoy, a pan you trust, and an early night more often than not. You will forget, you will remember, you will forget again, but your hands will keep learning the moves. Your mouth will learn what enough tastes like. Your kitchen will become a room that wants you back. When you stand now, notice the floor under your feet. Notice your jaw unclench. Notice the thought floating up that sounds like, I can do this. You can, because you already started. The lemon is in the bowl, the beans are in the cupboard, the pan is on the stove. The rest is just heat and time and the kindness you extend to yourself every time you put a bowl on the table and call it dinner. Slide the window open a crack and listen to the evening air for a second, traffic somewhere far off, the soft clink of plates in another apartment, the hush that shows up right before you feel ready to cook. We'll keep walking, you and I, in this same gentle rhythm. No diagrams, no rules shouted over the clatter, just an ordinary voice in your ear, adding a few more useful, human-sized layers to what you already know how to do. Start with a thought you might never have said aloud. The most powerful cooking tip is not a spice blend or a knife grip. It's knowing what you're going to eat before you're hungry. That sentence is a key hidden inside your day. Hunger is a drum beat. It's supposed to be. But drums make us dance faster than we mean to if there isn't a melody running underneath. The melody is your tiny plan, not a rigid menu pinned to the fridge, just a sentence you hum on your way home. Tonight I'll put chickpeas with roasted peppers and yogurt. Tomorrow I'll do a quick noodle broth. Wednesday is for leftovers and a walk after dinner. Not because a guru said so, but because I like how my head feels when I do that. You don't need to predict every verse, just enough to keep the beat from carrying you away. Let's slip into a small shop together and choose ingredients as if we were composing rather than purchasing. See those tomatoes? You can tell which ones are going to be worth slicing, just by the weight and the smell, heavier than they look, a perfume that actually smells like the plant. Pick 2, not 4 that will rot in the corner of the counter while you're busy being a person with a life. Now the greens. Choose the ones that squeak when you pinch the stems lightly. That squeak is a promise. For starches, try holding a bag of rice in your hand and imagining 3 different bowls you'd happily eat if you were late and tired. If you can't, pick another grain. Buy lemons like they're batteries you can plug into blandness. If you like cheese, buy one that does something dramatic for a plate. Feta that crumbles like chalk and dissolves like snow, or a hard wedge that turns into lightning when grated over hot food. These are not luxuries. They are tiny pieces of theater that keep you returning to your own table. There's a temptation, when you get good at the 3 chords of dinner, to become a bit of a snob. Resist it. The real world is full of Tuesday nights when your best option is a decent takeaway, a half-decent sandwich at a train station, or a plastic bowl of something pretending to be food. The skill is not avoiding imperfection. It's steering imperfection in your favor. At the sandwich shop, ask for extra leaves and less mayo without turning it into a performance. At the chain cafe, find the yogurt pot with nuts, not the cake disguised as breakfast. If the only hot thing on offer is a fried something, order it with a salad or a side of green beans and slow down your chewing. If it's a buffet, make the first thing on your plate a mound of vegetables and protein. Then add the other things as accents, rather than anchors. Your goal is not purity. It's arriving at bedtime with a nervous system that isn't vibrating and a body that recognizes what you fed it. There's a myth I wish we'd retire, the one that says cooking is either love or labor. It's often both. The trick is to let labor become a kind of love. Love for future you, who will open the fridge after a long day to find that your past self cared enough to make it easier. That is such a tender sentence, isn't it? My past self cared for me. When you carve out 20 minutes to roast vegetables or stir a pot of beans, you are leaving breadcrumbs for your future self to follow home. You think you're making dinner, you're also making loyalty. Some nights the house feels restless and your head is too noisy for a recipe. That's a night for a skillet and the simplest architecture. Warm oil, tumble in chopped onion with a pinch of salt. Wait for the gloss, add garlic and whatever spice feels like the right kind of weather. Add something from a tin and something fresh, chickpeas and tomatoes, cannellini beans and courgettes, lentils and peppers. If you have a lemon, the lemon belongs at the end, when the heat is off. If you have yogurt, the yogurt belongs on the plate, where heat can't curdle it into something you didn't intend. If you only have bread Bread is enough when it is toasted and when you respect it with olive oil and salt. This is not settling. This is real. Let's wander to the sink, because people pretend washing up is the worst part. It isn't. The worst part is the dread that builds when you ignore a small mess until it becomes a large one. Put a bowl on the counter and call it the compost bowl, even if all it ever contains is the ends of onions. Keep a kettle just for boiling water. You can pour over greasy pans, so heat does half the cleaning. Wipe the counter before you sit to eat. The you who returns to the kitchen later will feel relief rather than resentment. If you can afford one indulgence, buy a dish brush you actually like holding. It matters more than a gadget that promises spiralized anything. The kitchen that is easy to tidy is the kitchen that gets used. The kitchen that gets used is the kitchen that changes your life. A quick step sideways into the gut, that mysterious city in your belly. You've probably heard of the microbiome enough times to roll your eyes. Hold the eye roll for a second and think of it instead as a garden that never sleeps. Gardens don't thrive on a single fertilizer. They thrive on diversity. Your microbes get restless if all they ever see are the same 3 vegetables and the same grain. A simple game. Count plants like a child counts colors in a picture book. A handful of nuts is one plant, a carrot is another, oats are another, beans are another. Herbs count too. If you arrive at the weekend having eaten 20 different plants without trying, your garden hums. You didn't have to sprinkle powders into anything. You just rotated your cast. Now imagine you're cooking for someone with a tender stomach. Yours, perhaps, or a friend's after antibiotics, or a stomach bug, or a period of stress that turned appetite into smoke. Softness wins. Rice porridge made with extra water, and a pinch of salt, and a thumb of ginger. Poached chicken shredded into brothy noodles with spring onions and a splash of soy. Mashed sweet potatoes made savory with olive oil and pepper, not sweetened into a dessert. Yogurt stirred with stewed fruit, and a spoon of seeds if your mouth wants to remember crunch. This is not a permanent menu. It's a bridge back to normal food. Bridges are underrated in wellness conversations. Everyone wants to sell you a boat. Most of us need something to walk over. I want to talk gently about hunger and fullness because those words have been kidnapped by people who shout. Your body is not an opponent. It's a pen pal. Hunger is a letter. Fullness is a reply. Some days the letters arrive late or too many at once. That's often sleep debt talking. Or stress wearing hunger's coat. But mostly, if you slow your eating enough that you can hear the letters arrive, you will notice yourself becoming satisfied about 2/3 of the way through the plate. Pause there. If you are still truly hungry 5 minutes later, continue. If the pause unclenches something inside you, save the rest for later and consider it a victory, not a rule followed. A good life is full of these micro-negotiations with your own body. They are not tests. They are a friendship being maintained. People ask what to do about constant snacking, as if snacking were a moral failing. It's usually just a sign your meals don't anchor you. Add protein at breakfast, not as a grim shake but as food. Eggs, yogurt, tofu, beans, cheese, paired with fiber and fruit. Make lunch a meal, not an apology for lunch. Eat enough at dinner that you're not prowling through every cupboard at 10. And strategically place a bowl of satisfying snacks where your hand goes without thinking. Nuts in a small jar, fruit that is ready to eat, cut vegetables in a container you can see through. Put the candy where you can have it when you want it, but not where it will volunteer for duty every time you pass the counter. Architecture again, not willpower. Let's check in with movement, because sitting makes the edges of our days too sharp. You don't need an athlete's calendar. You need a body that gets to visit its joints. 10 minutes after lunch on days when you can. Stairs when they're available. A slow walk at dusk that is more about exhaling than about steps counted. If you enjoy structured exercise, feed it simply. A small carbohydrate before, some water during, a meal with protein and color afterward. If you lift heavy things, eat protein across the day rather than hoarding it at night. Your muscles like appointments, not surprises. If you don't enjoy any of this, be honest and don't pretend a kettlebell is going to suddenly become your best friend. Dance in your kitchen. Pull weeds. Carry groceries up the hill. Bodies love being useful more than they love the perfect set. Money and time remain the 2 currencies that keep showing up in our imaginary conversations with ourselves. You don't need to be rich to eat richly. You need to be strategic. When you cook beans, cook enough to freeze a few portions. They reheat like a gift. When you buy herbs, treat them like lettuce and put them in a jar of water in the fridge so they don't collapse in a day. When carrots are cheap, roast a tray and let them become 3 different lunches. Over grains with yogurt and pepper on Monday. In a soup spun smooth on Wednesday. Tucked into a wrap with hummus and greens on Friday. When cheese is expensive, buy a small piece and use a fine grater. A little becomes a snowfall that tastes like generosity. When meat is precious, use it the way our grandparents did. Small amounts to season a pot, not slabs to occupy a plate. There is a kind of learning that only happens when you cook for other people. You may already know this. A friend you invite to dinner makes you think about the way a table becomes a stage. It doesn't need props. It needs an intention to welcome. A meal with 3 dishes, something green and bright, something soft and warm, something crunchy and salty, feels like hospitality no matter the ingredients. Even if all you've made is a salad with good dressing, a bowl of olives, and toast with beans, you built a place where someone felt seen. It helps if you light a candle. It helps if you play the kind of music your kitchen likes. It helps if you're not apologizing for the imperfection of your food. No one came for Michelin. They came for you. There's a conversation we keep avoiding because it's awkward. Alcohol at dinner. You are an adult. You can do as you like. Consider, though, that the sleep that follows a drink is shallower than the sleep that follows tea. Consider that alcohol whispers in your ear to have another slice, another bowl, another something. Consider that one glass is often more delightful when it is not automatic. If you want the ritual without the aftermath, there are bottles now that offer the scent and theater of wine with none of the chemistry. You're allowed to choose that and still be fun at the table. You're allowed to choose nothing and still be the most interesting person in the room. We have circled grocery stores and simmered pots and negotiated office biscuits and remembered to drink water. Before we end, I want to hand you 3 small stories to keep in your pocket for the days your brain tells you this is all too much, and you might as well give up until Monday. The first story is about a man who decided that every time he burned garlic, he would not swear at himself. He would make a different dish. Burned garlic means start again with onions and cumin and turn it into something spiced and smoky. He didn't give up. He pivoted. The second story is about a woman who realized the thing that stopped her cooking wasn't time or money. It was the cutting board that slid on the counter and made her feel clumsy. She bought a heavier board and put a wet cloth under it, and her hands stopped tensing. The third story is about a student who discovered that if he put a pan on the stove before he opened his laptop, he would remember to cook. The pan became a declaration. The pan said, "We are eating at home." The pan made good on its promise. What you've been building these many pages isn't a diet, and it isn't just a set of recipes. It's a mood in your home. It's the feeling you get when you open the fridge, and it looks like possibility rather than guilt. It's the way your body speaks to you around 3 p.m. when you fed it something it actually recognized at midday. It's a kind of calm that creeps into your evenings because you know the next step. And it isn't hard. Calm is contagious. People who live with you will start to match it. People who visit you will carry a bit of it home, the way clothes carry cooking smells, but nicer. So here we are at the end of another long walk, still in your kitchen, still imagining the exact same life you have, only slightly friendlier around the edges. Tonight, if you want, roast a pan of vegetables before you brush your teeth, or wash the herbs and tuck them into their jar, or set out a bowl and a spoon and tip oats into it so breakfast begins even while you sleep, or do none of the above and simply pour yourself water and choose sleep over scrolling. All of these are choices that add up. None of them require you to become a different person. Take one more breath with me. The window is open an inch. The city or the quiet is doing what it does. Your house smells a little like onions and lemon and the good part of you that decided to cook. You turn off the light above the stove and leave the pan clean on the hob like a promise. When morning arrives, it will feel less like a test and more like a continuation, which is all habit ever is. The next right, small thing connected to the last right, small thing, until one day you look up and realize you have become the kind of person who feeds themselves well without turning it into a project. You didn't join a program. Open the fridge with me, not for guilt, not for inventory, just to notice the quiet. The little bulb lights the shelves, and you see a few familiar friends. A jar of something pickled, a container of roasted vegetables, a tub of yogurt, half a lemon tucked into a corner like a bright comma in a sentence. This is where we're starting tonight, with noticing. Because before food becomes fuel or therapy or science, it is a set of small, observable realities that either help you or haunt you. We will turn those realities toward help, gently, until they become habits that run on their own. The first reality is that decision fatigue is the enemy of good dinners. You know this from every 7 p.m. when you've stared at a cupboard like it owed you an apology. The antidote isn't another app or a new cookbook. It's a short list of defaults so familiar you don't think before you start. Defaults aren't boring. They are mercy in a bowl. Build 3 that match your life. The first default might be grain plus bean plus veg plus sauce. The second, eggs plus greens plus toast. The third, soup plus bread plus something crunchy. Write them on a sticky note inside a cupboard. When your brain goes blank, read the note aloud. Listening to your own voice is a peculiar form of accountability. The second reality is that a little theater makes food taste better. We treat restaurant plating as performance and home plating as utility, but tiny gestures at home can flip a switch in your brain from fuel to meal. Warm the bowl for soup under hot water while the pot simmers. Dribble olive oil in a thin, shiny thread rather than a puddle. It lands on your tongue differently. Scatter herbs with your fingers rather than with a spoon. Your nose catches perfume. Your mouth will call flavor. Crush a few seeds in your palm at the table so the oils bloom at the last second. These are not frills. They are levers of pleasure, and pleasure is the glue that holds behavior together. The third reality is that time is a spice. Letting something rest is as powerful as salt. Rice left covered for 5 minutes after the heat is off finishes in the kind of quiet that yields separate, tender grains. A steak, or a slab of tofu, rested on a board while you plate vegetables reabsorbs juices and tastes like you knew a secret. A pot of beans taken off the heat and left to sit while you answer a message softens and sweetens. Even sauces change. That tahini lemon mix that seemed grumpy and thick becomes silky if you give it a minute with a little cold water and patience. Hurrying makes food loud. Time makes it generous. Stroll with me through a weekday that goes sideways in the exact middle. You had breakfast like a person in control. Oats with yogurt and berries, a few nuts, coffee, water. Lunch was reasonable. A bowl you assembled with beans and leaves and something bright. And then the afternoon became a parade of fires to put out, and by the time you looked up it was 6:45, and you had used all your willpower on other people's emergencies. This is the moment most of us fall into the arms of convenience that doesn't love us back. Here is one tiny counterspell. Boil water. Put a pot on and fill it. It's nothing, and it's everything. Because once water boils, 10-minute solutions appear like shy animals. Noodles for a quick broth, couscous fluffed under a shower of lemon, frozen peas softened into something green and sweet, eggs lowered in to become dinner with mustard and toast. Boiling water is a decision disguised as a physics problem. It moves you from I can't to I guess I could. If you ever feel like you're eating the same 5 things, congratulate yourself. You have a foundation. Now teach those 5 things 3 new tricks, so they feel different without costing you energy. If your chickpea bowl is stuck in cumin land, give it a holiday with smoked paprika and sherry vinegar, then a beach trip with lemon zest and chopped parsley, then a late-night diner vibe with chili flakes and a fried egg. If your tofu only knows soy sauce, introduce it to miso, to harissa, to black pepper and honey. If your soup is always tomato, let it meet white beans and lemon, or red lentils and turmeric, or mushrooms and barley and thyme. You don't need 40 recipes. You need 5 recipes that know how to dress for many occasions. There's a tender topic most nutrition conversations avoid until people bring it up through gritted teeth: money and shame. Food advice often assumes you have time to shop twice a week, a car to carry groceries, a decent knife, a clear counter, spare cash for berries in winter, and the freedom to say no to overtime. If you don't, the advice can feel like scolding. Let's be real. Eating well on a tight budget is not a riddle if you anchor it to cheap. Forgiving staples, oats, rice, lentils, beans, eggs, frozen vegetables, tinned tomatoes, cabbage, carrots, onions, potatoes, yogurt, these don't require timing to the minute. They forgive heat that's a bit too high. They take on whatever flavor you can afford. And they become luxurious with 2 pennies worth of acid and oil. When berries are expensive, buy apples and oranges. When greens are pricey, buy cabbage. It's a leaf that's patient. When meat stretches you, buy a small amount and treat it like a flavoring rather than the backbone of a plate. No shame belongs here. Frugality has always been the mother of cuisine. If you can swing one investment, buy a pan you trust. Not the fanciest. The one that heats evenly and cleans easily. A pan that browns mushrooms without making them weep. That lets eggs slide with a little oil. That turns onion into sweetness. Tools aren't status. They're friction reducers. The same is true for a sharp knife and a stable board. The first time you cut a tomato without squashing it, you will feel a ridiculous swell of joy. That joy is not trivial. It's the emotion that gets you to cook again tomorrow. I want to whisper a word into the room that sometimes makes people flinch. Ritual. Ritual is not superstition. It's choreography. A mug of tea that always marks the beginning of cooking. A song you play while you chop. A candle you light when you sit. A one-line grace, religious or not, that thanks the hands, yours and strangers, that brought this food here. Ritual reduces ramp time. It moves you from day to dinner smoothly. And when life is frayed, ritual is a stitch. Children at the table are not obstacles. They're apprentices who learn by seeing. If you feed a small person, involve them when you can. Not in the Instagram way, in the can you wash the carrots, can you tear the herbs, can you put the napkins on the table way. Let them taste a flake of salt, a squeeze of lemon, a pinch of spice so they learn the language of flavor in their mouth, not from a poster. If they refuse a food, keep your face boring and offer it again next week. Exposure builds familiarity. Pressure builds resistance. And remember the one safe thing rule. When a dish is new, make sure there is one familiar item on the table too. Bread, fruit, plain yogurt, so they can remain calm while curiosity grows. Calm children eat more kinds of food eventually. Calm adults do too. Then there is the question of eating when you're alone, which is where many people abandon care. Solitary meals can feel like admin. Turn one into an actual date once a week. Set the table for one. Put your phone in another room for 15 minutes. Cook something small that feels like attention. An omelet with herbs and cheese. A pan-seared salmon piece with lemon and capers. Pasta with garlic and olive oil and a handful of greens thrown in at the end. Sit. Eat like a person worth a date. Your future relationships with yourself and others will notice. There will be weeks when time collapses. A deadline, a family crisis, a move, a new baby, a season of grief.
In those weeks, do not fight with food.
Lower the bar so it's impossible to trip over. Make a short list titled, Good Enough. Supermarket rotisserie chicken, plus bagged salad, plus bread. Tinned soup, plus grilled cheese. Hummus plus carrots, plus toast. Frozen vegetables, plus eggs. Yogurt plus fruit plus oats. Call friends and say, if you're cooking, make one extra and I'll swap. Accept offers of food without turning them into assessments of your worth. You do not earn help by being perfect. You qualify by being human. A slender paragraph for Spice Fear, because a lot of people secretly don't know how to use them and feel embarrassed to ask. Here's the quiet truth. You can do almost everything with 5. Salt, not a spice but crucial. Black pepper, cumin, smoked paprika, and chili flakes. Use cumin when you want warmth, smoked paprika when you want depth, chili when you want a nudge. Add them to hot oil near the start so they bloom. If you're ready for 2 more, buy coriander seeds and cinnamon. Coriander makes vegetables taste like they've listened to the sun. Cinnamon and savory food taste like memory. Blend spices with salt in a little dish and pinch from there. Your fingers are better dose measurers than spoons. We haven't spoken much about dessert because you probably don't need help wanting it, but you might need help making peace with it. Dessert is better when it is chosen in advance and eaten at the table. Put it on a plate, look at it. Share if you want or don't. Eat it slowly, like a secret. The human nervous system dislikes rules framed as never. It respects rituals framed as sometimes. Intentionally. If you love sweetness daily, choose fruit most days and pastry some days and call both choices adult. A small intermission for coffee because it is a food group in many lives. If you adore it, keep it. But learn your cutoff so sleep survives. Pair your first coffee with water and something to eat so your stomach and cortisol don't create a roller coaster. Notice if a later coffee is actually a craving for movement or sunlight. Swap the afternoon espresso for a walk or a cup of tea a couple of days a week, and see whether your evenings lengthen in a good way. You're not reducing joy. You're reclaiming rest. We're almost at the end of this night walk. So let's leave you with 3 little recipes. Without recipes you can make by ear, with what you likely have, each carrying a different mood. First, lemon lentil soup for tired days. Rinse a cup of red lentils in a sieve until the water runs clear. In a pot, warm oil and soften a chopped onion with a pinch of salt. Stir in a grated clove of garlic, a teaspoon of turmeric, a teaspoon of cumin, and a pinch of chili flakes if you like. Add the lentils and 4 cups of water. Simmer 15 minutes until the lentils collapse. Squeeze in the juice of a lemon. Taste for salt. Throw in a handful of spinach to wilt. Serve with yogurt if you want creaminess. This soup is forgiveness in a bowl. Second, roasted carrots with tahini and herbs for people you like. Heat the oven hot. Cut a bunch of carrots lengthwise and toss with olive oil, salt, and pepper. Roast until their tips darken and their insides turn to candy. Whisk tahini with lemon juice, salt, and enough cold water to make it pourable. Pile the carrots on a plate, drizzle the sauce, and scatter herbs. Parsley, dill, mint if you have them. Scatter toasted seeds if you fancy crunch. It tastes expensive and isn't. Third, quick noodle bowl for a better lunch. Boil water. In a bowl, mix a spoon of miso or soy sauce with a grated clove of garlic, a knob of grated ginger, a teaspoon of sesame oil, and a squeeze of lime if there's a lime lurking. Pour in hot water to make a broth. Add a nest of quick-cooking noodles to the water still boiling, or drop them into the bowl to soften if they're the instant kind. Add thawed frozen peas, sliced spring onions, and a boiled egg or shredded leftover chicken or cubes of tofu. Eat hot. Your afternoon will thank you. One last layer, for when you're tempted to throw up your hands and decide your life is too peculiar to be helped by bowls and lemons. You are right. Your life is peculiar. Everyone's is. Nutrition is not a math problem to be solved once. It's a practice like brushing your teeth, like writing, like learning a language. Some days you will be eloquent. Some days you will mumble. The point is not eloquence. The point is consistency. Show up. Put water next to coffee. Put plants where you'll see them. Anchor meals with protein you like. Eat slowly enough to notice satisfaction. Sleep like you're on your own side. When you forget, restart with one cooked thing. That's the whole method. Close the fridge now. The bulb clicks off, and the kitchen returns to its evening self. You rinse the cup you just used and leave it upside down to dry. You wipe the counter with the last warmth of the day still in your hands. You think briefly of tomorrow, and it doesn't feel like a cliff. It feels like a path you've already walked. The pan is exactly where you left it. The lemon on the counter is still bright. You don't need a plan with 17 steps. You need this feeling that feeding yourself can be ordinary and kind. That it will happen again, and again, and again, until it's no longer a project but a life.